let's talk about move, rotate, and scale tools. After you activating the move tools, every time you click on any object, you can see that 3 arrow is gonna be displayed. And for moving our object, for example, if I click on this square object, every time I left click on any one of these arrows and drag, the object is gonna moving along one of these arrows, and these arrows is represent the X, Y, and Z axis. So if I left click on red arrow and drag, my object is gonna move along X axis. The blue is moving along Z axis, and Y is moving along Y axis. Now, if you want to move your object along Z and X axis but not Y axis, there is also a small square icon, and if I click on one of these squares and drag, you can see that my object is gonna move along the Z and X axis but not Y axis. And you can see that the two axes is displayed on the screen, and it represents the axis that my object is gonna move on. So we also have a white circle, and white circle is for representing the free move, and this free move is based on the angle that I view my object. For example, if I view my object from this angle and move, you can see that my object is gonna be moving along this stuff. But if I come here and move my object again, my object is gonna move based on this angle. Now, for efficient modeling in Blender, it is better for you to learn the shortcuts of the move tools, because move is one of the most tools that you're gonna use in Blender, so it's better to learn the shortcuts. And the shortcuts for move tools is G, and G is come from the word grab, because every time you press G, you grab your object, and the object is gonna move based on the movement of your mouse. So I press one more time, I press G, and my object is gonna move. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there are some keys that displays, and these are the shortcut that you can use after using the G or grab or move tools. And this is the benefit of the Blender, because you can use multiple shortcuts along each other. And after I use the G for grab, if I want to move my object around the X axis, if I click X, you can see that my object is gonna move along X. And if I click Y, my object is gonna move along Y. And if I click Z, my object is gonna move along Z axis. But what if I want to move my object along Z and X axis but not Y axis? The shortcut is Shift Y. I mean, you click G for grab, and after grabbing your object, click Shift Y, and Shift Y means I don't want to move my object around Y axis. And you can see that now my object is moving around the X and Z axis. So G is for grabbing freely, X, Y, Z is for moving along X, Y, Z, and Shift X, Y, Z is moving not along X, Y, Z. So the next tool is rotate, and if I click on rotate, you can see that the arrows is gonna change to circle, and it means that this is the rotate tools. Every one of the circle represent moving around one of the axes. For example, the red is for moving around X axis, the green is moving around Y axis, and the blue is moving around Z axis. And if I click and drag, you can see that my object is moving around one of them. And the white circle is rotating around the point of view. For example, I look at this point of view, and my object is gonna move around my point of view. So there is a shortcut also for rotation, but if you don't like to learn this shortcut, it doesn't matter, but it's really very simple. Rotate R, and you can use, for example, I'm here, and you can use R for rotation. And just like the move tools, for rotating around one of the axes, you can use the X, Y, or Z axis. The next tool is scale tools. And every time I click on scale tools, you can see that three line and a box on the head of each one of them is gonna be appear. And if I click and drag one of them, you can see that my object is gonna resize or scale along that axis. And for example, I click on this frame, and if I left click on the blue or Z axis and drag, my object is gonna resize or scale around Z axis. And we can also resize our object through three axes, and by clicking on this white or this white, it doesn't matter. You can resize your object through three axes. And like the move axis, if you click on any one of these square, you can scale or resize your object around, for example, Z and X axis, but not Y axis. You can see that I just resized my object around Z and X axis and not Y axis. And the shortcut for scale tools is S, and it's one of the shortcuts that you need to learn, because in some point you can't use these arrows as efficient as using the shortcuts for modeling your object. So it doesn't matter if you don't remember the rotate shortcut, but the scale shortcut is very important because it's very useful, especially in the modeling. And this is the move, rotate, and scale tools in Blender. I really suggest that you learn the shortcuts because you're gonna use these tools a lot in the object mode and edit mode. And you can also subscribe or like if you like. See you on the next video.